I'm a 23-year veteran of the United States Army. I've served in places I can't name and seen things that would make most people's stomachs turn. I've been shot at. I've been blown up. I've held dying men in my arms and told them lies about how everything was going to be okay. But I've never been afraid. Not really. Not the kind of fear that reaches down into your bones and makes a permanent home there. Not until I pulled guard duty at Fort Ellison in the winter of 2019. I need you to understand something before I continue. I'm not telling you this because I want to. I'm not telling you this because it feels good to get it off my chest. I'm telling you because 3 days ago I got a phone call. A friend of mine just got assigned there, a good kid, 26 years old, wife and a baby daughter back home, and he needs to know what walks those grounds after midnight. What's still waiting there? What took my team? They called it a decommissioned training facility. That's military speak for abandoned. Fort Ellison sat on 300 acres of Wyoming wilderness, the kind of place where cell service goes to die, and the nearest town is 40 minutes of bad road away. Nothing but sagebrush and silence for miles in every direction. The kind of place where, if something happened to you, no one would know for days. I was Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb, military police, 30 years of service under my belt, 2 combat deployments, more commendations than I could hang on my wall, and they'd given me what was supposed to be a retirement assignment, babysitting an empty base while the Army figured out what to do with it. A thank you for 3 decades of service, a quiet post where nothing ever happened. That's what they told us. There were 4 of us, me, Staff Sergeant Davis, Sergeant Kowalski, and Specialist Chen. Davis was the closest thing I had to a friend on that assignment. 42 years old, 2 tours in Afghanistan, built like a refrigerator. The kind of man who'd seen real combat and come out the other side with a permanent squint and a dark sense of humor. Nothing rattled him, nothing scared him. At least, that's what I thought. Kowalski was younger, 31. Quiet. The kind of soldier who did his job and kept his thoughts to himself. He had a wife back in Nebraska and a collection of vintage vinyl records that he talked about whenever he'd had a few beers. Chen was the youngest, 24. First real assignment after MP school, eager, a little too eager maybe, the kind of kid who still believed in things. We arrived on a Tuesday, November 5th. I remember because it was my daughter's birthday, and I'd missed it. Again. She'd turned 16, and I was 800 miles away, driving through frozen Wyoming scrubland toward a place that didn't even show up on most maps. The guilt sat heavy in my chest as our convoy rolled through the main gate. Fort Ellison looked exactly like you'd expect an abandoned military base to look. Paint peeling off every surface like dead skin. Windows dark and empty like the eyes of a corpse. Weeds growing through cracks in the asphalt, pushing up through decades of neglect. The parade ground was a field of brown grass and forgotten memories. I could almost see the ghosts of formations past, rows of soldiers standing at attention under a summer sun that had set decades ago. But there was something else, something I couldn't put my finger on at first. The silence. Not just quiet. Silence. The kind of silence that presses against your eardrums. The kind that makes you hyper-aware of your own heartbeat, your own breathing, the blood rushing through your own veins. No birds, no wind, no distant highway noise. Just nothing. Creepy place, Chen muttered as we pulled up to the security station. It's just old, I said. Nothing creepy about old. I wish I'd been right. We set up in the security station, a squat concrete building near the main gate that still had power, thanks to a generator that someone had maintained over the years. 4 cots, a small kitchen, a bank of monitors connected to security cameras that covered maybe 60% of the base. The rest was blind spots and shadows. Our orders were simple. Patrol the perimeter twice per shift. Check the locks on the armory, the motor pool, and the old command building. Report anything unusual. Unusual like what? Chen asked during our first briefing. I shrugged. Vandals, trespassers, kids looking for a place to drink or do drugs. The usual. Davis snorted. Out here? Nearest town's 40 minutes away. What kid's gonna drive 40 minutes to drink in a condemned building? Just do the job, I said. 3 months and we're out of here. 3 months. We didn't even make it 3 weeks. The first night was quiet. Too quiet, maybe, but I chalked that up to the isolation. I walked my rounds with a flashlight and a radio that picked up nothing but static. Checked the locks on the old armory. Swept my light across the windows of the abandoned infirmary. Walked the perimeter fence and listened to the crunch of frost under my boots. Normal. Boring, even. I told myself I was lucky, a nothing assignment in a nothing place. 3 months of easy money before I put in my retirement papers. The second night, that's when it started. It was just after 0200, the dead hour. The time when the world feels thin and wrong, and you start to understand why ancient people believed in demons. I was walking the parade ground, my breath fogging in the cold, my flashlight cutting a pale beam through the darkness. And then I heard them. Footsteps, not mine. They came from somewhere to my left, steady, rhythmic, the unmistakable cadence of boots on asphalt. Left, 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 right, left, the sound of a soldier marching. I stopped, swept my flashlight toward the sound. Nothing, just empty pavement, brown grass, darkness. But the footsteps continued. And then there were more of them, not one soldier, many. The steady drum of a full formation marching in perfect unison, dozens of boots, maybe hundreds, the sound of an entire company moving across the parade ground, moving toward me. I'm recording every word of this in the log, I told myself, just in case someone needs to know what happened here. Davis, I said into my radio, you seeing anything on the cameras? Static. Then his voice, thin and uncertain. Webb. The cameras on the parade ground just went dark. What do you mean dark? I mean dark, black, like someone put their hand over the lens. All of them? A long pause. All of them. The marching grew louder, closer. I could feel the vibration of it through the soles of my boots, like the earth itself was shaking with the weight of invisible soldiers. And then it stopped. Right in front of me. I could feel them. That's the part that's hard to explain. The air changed, got heavier, colder, like stepping into a walk-in freezer, except there was no door to step through. The temperature dropped at least 20 degrees in the span of a single heartbeat, and I could feel them. Bodies, presence, the pressure of a crowd standing too close, except there was no one there. I held my breath. Didn't move, didn't blink. My flashlight trembled in my hand, casting shaky shadows across empty asphalt. Something brushed against my shoulder, something cold, something that felt like fingers. I didn't run. You don't survive 30 years in the Army by running from things you don't understand. You assess. You adapt. You move with purpose. But I walked very, very quickly back to the security station. And I didn't look back. Davis was waiting for me. His face was pale. His hands were shaking. I'd served with Davis in Kandahar. I'd seen him take fire without flinching. I'd seen him pull a wounded private out of a burning vehicle while insurgents shot at him from 3 directions. I'd never seen his hands shake. The parade ground cameras just came back, he said. You need to see this. He rewound the footage. I watched myself on the grainy monitor, a small figure walking across the parade ground, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. I watched myself stop, watched myself speak into my radio, and then I saw what was behind me. Shadows, dozens of them, standing in formation. They had no features, no faces, just the dark silhouettes of soldiers standing at attention, rows and rows of them, stretching back into the darkness beyond the camera's reach. On the screen, I watched myself turn and walk away. The shadows didn't follow. They just watched. And then, one by one, they faded, like smoke dissolving into air. What the hell is this place? Davis whispered. I didn't have an answer. Play it again, I said. He did. We watched it 4 more times. On the 4th viewing, I noticed something I'd missed before, something that made my stomach drop. The shadows were wearing uniforms, old uniforms, the kind of uniforms soldiers wore in the 1950s. And one of them, one in the front row, was looking directly at the camera. "We should report this," Davis said. "Report what? That we saw ghosts on a security camera? They'll think we're crazy. They'll pull us off this assignment and put black marks in our files." So what do? I looked at the frozen image on the screen. The shadow soldier, faceless and dark, staring at me through decades of time and space. We figure out what happened here. The third night, I went to the base archives. Every military installation keeps records: personnel files, incident reports, training schedules, the mundane paperwork of bureaucracy that piles up year after year until someone finally boxes it up and forgets about it. Fort Ellison was no different. The archives were in the basement of the old command building. Rows of filing cabinets covered in dust, cardboard boxes stacked to the ceiling, the smell of mold and old paper thick in the air. I wasn't supposed to be there. My orders were to patrol the perimeter, not go digging through classified documents. But I needed to know. I started with the base history. Fort Ellison was established in 1942 as a training facility for infantry soldiers. Thousands of men passed through here during World War II, learning how to fight and die in places they'd never heard of. After the war, the base was downsized but not closed. Training continued, smaller units, more specialized. And then I found the folder. It was misfiled, shoved between routine maintenance reports from 1973. Someone had made a mistake, or maybe someone had hidden it there on purpose. The folder was marked classified, Project Echo, eyes only. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that now. I knew it then. I opened it anyway. Inside was a collection of documents, memos, incident reports, photographs. The first memo was dated August 3rd, 1953. R.E. Unusual Phenomena, Parade Ground. Since the conclusion of Training Exercise Omega on July 15th, multiple personnel have reported auditory hallucinations consistent with marching formations. Security cameras have captured unexplained anomalies. Recommend investigation. I flipped to the next document, a follow-up memo dated August 10th. R.E. Investigation results. Investigation inconclusive. Phenomena continues. Recommend psychological evaluation for affected personnel. Then, August 17th. R.E. Incident Report. Private First Class. Harold Simmons found unresponsive on parade ground at 0347. Cause: apparent cardiac arrest. Age 22. No prior medical conditions. Recommend autopsy. Then, August 24th. R.E. Autopsy results. Private First Class Simmons. Cause of death: heart failure, induced by extreme psychological stress. Subject's face frozen in expression of extreme terror. Hair had turned completely white. Recommend classifying incident and restricting access to parade ground after dark. My hands weren't steady as I turned to the next document. It was the incident report for Training Exercise Omega. I read it 3 times to make sure I understood. On July 15th, 1953, a company of 47 soldiers assembled on the parade ground for a night training exercise. The exercise was routine, a simple march followed by tactical maneuvers. At 0300, radio contact was lost. At 0315, the officer of the day sent a runner to check on the formation. The runner reported that the parade ground was empty. 47 soldiers gone. Search operations conducted July 16th to 22nd. No trace of personnel found, no equipment recovered, no evidence of foul play or desertion. Bodies recovered, 0. Status: classified. All personnel involved in search operations to be transferred immediately. No further investigation authorized. At the bottom of the page, someone had handwritten a note in faded pencil. They didn't leave. They're still here. God help us, they're still here. I put the folder back. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. 47 soldiers had vanished on this parade ground 66 years ago. And last night, 47 shadows had stood in formation behind me. I needed to tell the others. I gathered the team in the security station, showed them the documents, showed them the footage. Chen went pale. Kowalski was quiet, quieter than usual. Davis just nodded slowly, like something had finally clicked into place. I knew something was wrong with this place, he said. Felt it from the moment we got here, like being watched all the time. So what do we do? Chen asked. His voice was higher than usual, scared. We can't just stay here, if those things are real. They're not things, I said. They were soldiers, our brothers. Something happened to them, and they're still here. Trapped, Kowalski said quietly. It was the first word he'd spoken in an hour. They're trapped here. Can't you feel it? The whole base feels like a cage. I could feel it. I'd been trying not to feel it, but now that he'd said it out loud, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Fort Ellison didn't feel abandoned. It felt occupied. The fourth night, I tried to make contact. Looking back, that was a mistake. Maybe the biggest mistake of my life. But I was a soldier. I'd spent my whole career following orders, solving problems, taking action. I couldn't just sit in the security station and wait for something to happen. I needed to understand. At 0200, I walked back to the parade ground. Alone. Davis had argued against it. Chen had practically begged me not to go. But I outranked them, and I was stubborn. God, I was stubborn. The night was clear, cold. The stars overhead were bright and sharp and utterly indifferent to whatever was about to happen. I walked to the center of the parade ground and stopped. I know you're here, I said. My voice sounded strange in the silence, too loud, too alive. I've read the reports. I know what happened to you. July 15th, 1953, training exercise Omega. Nothing. My name is Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to make trouble. I just want to understand. Still nothing. The silence pressed against me. The cold bit through my jacket. And then, footsteps. Not marching this time, just one set of boots, walking slowly, deliberately. Coming toward me from the darkness, I raised my flashlight, and I saw him. He was young, early 20s maybe, wearing a uniform from another era, the olive drab of the Korean War period. His face was pale, too pale, the color of old paper. And his eyes were wrong. They were dark, completely dark. No whites, no iris, just pools of shadow where eyes should have been. He stopped 10 feet away from me. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Neither of us spoke. Then he opened his mouth. You shouldn't be here. His voice was like wind through dead leaves, dry, distant, like it was coming from very far away. I want to help, I said. I want to understand what happened to you. You can't help. Maybe I can. Maybe if I report what I found, someone will... No. He shook his head slowly. The movement was wrong somehow, jerky, like a puppet with tangled strings. No one can help. No one can leave. Leave? What do you mean? It won't let us leave. My blood went cold. What won't let you leave? The soldier raised his hand and pointed. Behind me, into the darkness beyond the parade ground. I turned, and I saw it. The infirmary, the abandoned building at the edge of the base, windows dark, walls stained with age. But there was something in the doorway, something tall, something dark, something that didn't have a face but was definitely looking at me. It came with the land, the soldier whispered behind me. Before the base, before the war, before any of us. It's been here forever. Waiting, hungry. Hungry for what? For us? For soldiers? For anyone who wears the uniform? The shape in the doorway moved, just slightly. A shifting of shadows, and I felt something brush against my mind. Not words, a feeling, possession, ownership, hunger. Run, the soldier said. Run, and don't look back. Don't come back. Forget this place. Forget us. It's too late for us. I can't just run. His voice cracked like thunder, and suddenly the parade ground was full of them, 47 shadows, standing all around me, their dark eyes fixed on something behind me, something moving, and then they started to scream. I ran. I don't remember the details. Don't remember my feet hitting the ground. Don't remember the cold air tearing at my lungs. I just remember running, faster than I've ever run, toward the lights of the security station. Behind me, the screaming continued. Dozens of voices, men's voices, screaming in terror and pain and something beyond either. And beneath the screaming, something else. A sound, low, deep, like the earth itself was laughing. I burst through the door of the security station. Davis caught me as I stumbled. Chen was at the monitors, his face white with fear. "The cameras," he said. "Webb, the cameras." I looked at the screens. Every camera on the base was showing the same thing. Darkness, pure, absolute darkness. And in the center of each screen, barely visible, a shape. Tall, dark, featureless, watching. "What did you do?" Davis whispered. I tried to talk to them, the soldiers. I wanted to understand. And now it knows we're here. The lights flickered, once, twice, and then they went out. We spent the rest of that night huddled in the security station, flashlights clutched in our hands, listening to sounds we couldn't explain. Footsteps on the roof, scratching at the walls, voices whispering just outside the door, voices that sounded almost like words, but not quite. When dawn finally came, we emerged to find the base unchanged, empty, silent. But there was something new on the parade ground, written in the frost, letters 10 feet tall. Mine. I requested a transfer that morning. All 4 of us did. I cited personal reasons. So did the others. They granted the transfers within hours, no questions asked, no pushback. Someone knew. Someone had always known. But here's the thing that keeps me awake at night. The thing I haven't told anyone until now. We didn't all make it out. 3 weeks after I left Fort Ellison, I got a call from Davis. He was whispering, frantic, his voice shaking in a way I'd never heard before. "Webb." I went back. I had to go back. I don't know why, but I had to. "Davis, what are you talking about?" "I drove out there last night, just to see, just to make sure it was real." My heart stopped. "And?" "They're on the parade ground, the shadows. But Webb, there are more of them now." "How many more?" A long pause. 51. 47 soldiers disappeared in 1953. We had a crew of 4. "Davis, where are Kowalski and Chen?" "I don't know. I can't reach them. Their phones there's no signal. There's no..." The line went dead. I tried calling back, over and over, got nothing but static. I tried calling Kowalski, Chen, anyone who might have answers. Nothing. I even called the base directly. The old landline that was supposed to connect to the security station. A voice answered. Not Davis, not any voice I recognized. It said 4 words. "We're waiting for you." Then silence. Fort Ellison was permanently sealed 6 months later. Official reason: environmental hazards. No further explanation given. But I know the truth. And somewhere in the Wyoming wilderness, on an abandoned parade ground that no one will ever visit again, 51 shadows stand in formation every night, waiting. I think they're waiting for me. And lately I've been dreaming about the parade ground, about the cold, about the darkness, about a voice that whispers my name. 3 nights ago, I woke up standing in my backyard at 3 in the morning, barefoot, facing west toward Wyoming. And I was marching. Left, 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 right, left. I don't know how long I was out there before my wife found me. Whatever's in Fort Ellison, it's not done with me. And I don't think I can fight it much longer. Some posts never end. Some soldiers never stop serving. And some commands you follow forever. If you ever get stationed at a military base and they tell you not to go into a certain building, don't go into that building. Don't ask questions about it. Don't look at it too long. Don't even think about it. I wish someone had told me that before October of 2021. My name is Specialist Elena Torres. I'm 29 years old. I've been in the Army for 7 years, and I'm about to tell you what I found beneath Building 7 at Camp Ridley. What's down there in the dark, and why I'm the only one who came back up. Camp Ridley was supposed to be a temporary assignment, 3 months of administrative work while I waited for my next deployment, processing paperwork, filing requisition forms, the kind of mind-numbing bureaucracy that makes you question every life choice that led you to this moment. The base sat in the mountains of eastern Oregon, far enough from civilization that the stars looked fake, too bright, too many, like someone had scattered diamonds across black velvet. The nearest town was 2 hours away. The nearest cell tower was 45 minutes. Out there, you were alone, really alone, in a way that people who've lived their whole lives in cities can't understand. There were maybe 200 personnel on base, support staff mostly. A few training units that rotated through every couple weeks. Nothing special, nothing interesting. Just a quiet post in a quiet place where nothing ever happened. That's what I thought. I arrived on a Monday, September 20th. The air was crisp and clean, the kind of air that makes you feel like you could walk forever and never get tired. Mountains rose on 3 sides, their peaks already dusted with early snow. The sky was so blue it hurt to look at. Beautiful. And wrong. I felt it the moment I stepped off the transport. That prickle at the back of your neck, that weight in your stomach, like being watched by something you can't see. "First time at Ridley?" the driver asked. I nodded. He didn't smile. "You'll get used to it." I never did. Most of the buildings on base were standard military construction. Beige walls, fluorescent lights, linoleum floors that squeaked under your boots, the smell of floor wax and stale coffee that seems to follow you everywhere in the Army. But Building 7 was different. It sat at the eastern edge of the base, separated from everything else by a chain-link fence topped with razor wire. The fence wasn't unusual. Military bases have a lot of fences, but this one was different. This one faced inward, like they were trying to keep something in. The building itself was old, older than the rest of the base. Concrete walls stained with decades of weather, windows that had been painted black from the inside, no signs, no markings, just a number 7, stenciled above a steel door that looked like it belonged on a bank vault. No one went in, no one came out. "What's in Building 7? I asked my supervisor on my second day. Her name was Sergeant Major Williams, 50 years old, iron gray hair, the kind of officer who'd seen everything and was impressed by nothing. She didn't look up from her paperwork. "Storage." "Storage for what?" "Equipment." "What kind of equipment?" She set down her pen, looked at me with eyes that had seen things I couldn't imagine. Torres, ask questions like that and you'll find yourself reassigned to Alaska. Some buildings are off limits for a reason. Some doors aren't meant to be opened. Are we clear?" "Yes, Sergeant Major." "Good, now get back to work." I dropped it. You learn quickly in the military. Some things aren't meant to be explained. Some questions don't have answers. Or maybe they have answers that nobody wants to hear. But I couldn't stop watching that building. Every day I'd find excuses to walk past it, to look at those blacked-out windows, that heavy steel door, the fence that faced the wrong way. And every day I felt it. Something behind those walls, something aware, something waiting. At night the lights came on, not all of them, just one window on the second floor. A pale greenish glow that flickered like an old television, like something was moving in front of a light source. It came on at exactly 2:17 every morning and shut off at exactly 4:42. I timed it. Every night for 3 weeks, I set my alarm and watched from my barracks window. Always the same time, down to the second. And sometimes, if I watched long enough, I could see shapes moving behind the painted glass. Not human shapes, something else. "You've noticed it too," a voice said behind me one night. I spun around. Corporal Danny Reeves was standing in the doorway of my room. Young, early 20s, red hair and a face full of freckles that made him look about 16. "Noticed what?" "Building 7. He walked over to my window. looked out at that pale green glow. The lights, the sounds. What sounds? He was quiet for a moment. Sometimes, if you're on night patrol near the fence, you can hear things coming from underground. What kind of things? Voices. He swallowed. Hundreds of them, whispering. But you can never make out what they're saying. And sometimes what? Sometimes they stop, all at once, like they know you're listening. I looked back at Building 7. The green light flickered. How long has this been going on? Since before I got here, since before anyone got here probably. Building 7's been here since the 50s. And no one knows what's inside? Reeves shook his head. People have tried to find out. They don't try twice. What do you mean? He looked at me. His eyes were too old for his face. 3 soldiers have tried to break into Building 7 since I've been here. 2 of them transferred out the next day, requested it themselves, wouldn't say why. And the 3rd? A long pause. The 3rd is still here. He just doesn't talk anymore. Doesn't do anything, really. Just sits in his bunk and stares at the wall. Which bunk? Reeves pointed across the base to the medical building, the psychiatric ward. They transferred him there 6 months ago. He still won't say what he saw. The 4th week, I found the file. I was organizing old records in the archives, personnel files, equipment manifests, training schedules, the boring, tedious paperwork that nobody cares about until something goes wrong. And then I found it. A folder shoved between maintenance reports from 1973. Hidden, or maybe forgotten. The label read, Building 7, Project Threshold, Top Secret. My heart stopped. I should have put it back. I should have pretended I never saw it. I should have remembered Sergeant Major Williams's warning about Alaska. I opened it. The first page was a memo dated October 19th, 1968. Project Threshold, Phase 1, complete. Tunnel excavation successful. Depth achieved, 2,847 feet. Anomalous material discovered at 2,200 feet. Nature of material, unknown. Initial contact established at 0347 on October 15th. Recommend extreme caution. I read those last 2 sentences again. Initial contact established. Contact with what? The next document was an incident report dated November 3rd, 1968. RE. Casualties during Phase 2. At 0200, Team Bravo descended into the excavation for routine inspection. Communication lost at 0247. Recovery team sent at 0315. Recovery team found Team Bravo at level 7. All 6 members deceased. Cause of death, undetermined. Autopsies revealed no physical trauma, no toxins, no evidence of foul play. All 6 soldiers appeared to have died of extreme psychological shock. Note: expressions on deceased suggest they witnessed something before death. Security footage from Level 7 corrupted. Only recovered frame shows, redacted. Recommend sealing Level 7 in all lower excavations. I flipped to the next page. My hands were shaking. December 12th, 1968. RE continued activity. Despite sealing of lower levels, activity continues. Sounds reported from beneath the sealed doors. Voices, movement. 3 personnel have reported visions after working in proximity to the excavation entrance. All 3 describe the same image, a vast, dark space. Something moving in the darkness, something aware. Recommend permanent closure of Building 7. The last document in the folder was different from the others. Not typed, handwritten, the letters shaky, uneven, written by someone whose hands wouldn't stay still. They're trying to close it, but it won't close. The tunnel goes both ways. We opened a door, and something came through. Something old. Something that was here before us, before anything. It's in the walls now, in the ground, in the dreams of everyone who's been down there. We didn't dig a tunnel, we opened a mouth, and now it's feeding. At the bottom of the page, in different handwriting, someone had added, Private Morrison, found in Building 7 basement December 14th, 1968. Document recovered from his body. Morrison had been missing for 16 hours. He was 43 feet below where he was last seen. There are no stairs leading that far down. There weren't supposed to be. I put the folder back, closed the filing cabinet, walked out of the archives on legs that didn't feel like mine. That night, I dreamed of the dark, of something moving in the deep places of the earth, something that had been waiting for a very, very long time. And when I woke up, there was dirt under my fingernails. I told myself I wouldn't go. Every day for 2 more weeks, I told myself I wouldn't go. But curiosity is a disease, and once it takes hold, it doesn't let go. I started having the dreams every night, the same dream. A long tunnel stretching down into darkness, a voice calling my name from somewhere far below. And every morning, more dirt under my fingernails, mud on my boots that I couldn't explain, bruises on my knees like I'd been crawling. I wasn't sleeping, I was walking. On October 23rd, at 3 in the morning, I stopped fighting it. I cut through the fence around Building 7. The front door was unlocked. That should have been my first warning. A building this restricted, this classified, and the door just opened. Like it had been waiting for me. Like it wanted me to come inside. Inside, the building was empty, dusty, the kind of abandon that feels intentional. Desks covered in white sheets, filing cabinets standing like tombstones, overhead lights that flickered once, twice, then died. But there were footprints in the dust, fresh ones, leading toward a door at the back of the room. I followed them. The door opened onto a staircase, not up, down. The stairs descended into darkness, concrete walls, no handrails, just step after step after step, going further than any basement should. The air grew warmer with each step, heavier, harder to breathe. I counted. 217 steps before I reached the first landing. There was a door there. Steel. Heavy. The kind of door you'd find on a submarine, a wheel in the center instead of a handle. I turned the wheel. The door opened. And there, in the beam of my flashlight, the tunnel. It stretched into blackness in both directions. The walls were smooth, too smooth, not carved, not constructed, grown almost, organic, like the inside of something alive. The floor was damp, warm. It pulsed beneath my boots, not like concrete, like flesh. I should have turned back. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to run, to climb those 217 steps and never look back. But something was calling me forward, a voice I couldn't hear with my ears, a pull I felt in my chest. I went deeper. The tunnel curved, descended. The temperature rose with every step, not uncomfortable at first, then warm, then hot, then wrong. The air itself had a heartbeat. I could feel it pressing against my skin, pulsing, alive, and there was a sound, low, constant, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once, a hum that I felt in my teeth, in my bones, in the deepest parts of my brain, the sound of something breathing. After what felt like hours, I came to a chamber. The tunnel opened up into a vast space, so large my flashlight couldn't find the walls. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above. The floor was covered in something soft, something that moved when I stepped on it. I didn't look down. I couldn't look down. But I could see what was in the center of the chamber, a pillar, black, massive, rising from the floor like a finger pointing at heaven, and carved into its surface. Names, thousands of names, tens of thousands, carved in tiny letters from the base of the pillar all the way up into the darkness above. I walked closer, played my flashlight across the surface. The names were military, ranks, serial numbers, dates. Private Harold Morrison, December 14th, 1968. Sergeant William Chen, March 22nd, 1971. Corporal Maria Santos, August 19th, 1984. Specialist James Wright, November 3rd, 1999. And at the bottom, in fresh carved letters that gleamed wet in my light, Specialist Elena Torres, October 23rd, 2021. My name was already there. I ran, or tried to run. The tunnel had changed. The way back was gone. Where there had been an opening, there was now only wall, smooth, organic, warm. I spun around. The chamber was smaller than before. The pillar was closer, and I wasn't alone. They emerged from the darkness, one at a time. Soldiers, dozens of them, hundreds maybe, wearing uniforms from every era. World War II fatigues, Vietnam-era jungle camo, Desert Storm BDUs. They were pale, all of them, the color of something that had never seen sunlight. And their eyes were wrong, dark, empty, like holes in the fabric of reality. One of them stepped forward, a soldier in Gulf War camouflage, young, early 20s. His face was off. The features were there, but they didn't fit right, like someone had tried to assemble a human from a description they'd only half understood. When he spoke, his lips didn't match the words. "You came down." "What?" "You came down like the others. They always come down." His head tilted, too far, 90 degrees, like his neck had no bones. "You saw the file, read the words, felt the pull. They all do. The curious ones, the brave ones, the ones who can't leave well enough alone." He smiled, too wide. "It calls to them, and they come." "What is this place?" My voice was shaking. I couldn't make it stop. "What are you?" "We were soldiers, like you. We came down to see what was below, and now we're part of it." "Part of what?" He pointed past me, toward the pillar. "Part of the below." I turned. The pillar was moving. Not the pillar. Something behind it. Something vast. Something that had been standing so still I'd thought it was part of the darkness. It unfolded. That's the only word I have. It unfolded from the shadows like a flower blooming in reverse, pieces of darkness assembling into a shape that my brain refused to process. It had no face, but it was looking at me. And then I heard its voice. Not in my ears, in my skull. "You are mine now. Like the others. Like all the others. You wear the uniform. You serve the flag. But there is an older service. An older flag." The soldiers around me dropped to their knees, their heads bowed, their mouths moved in unison, whispering words in a language I didn't recognize. They came to take, to claim, to conquer. But this land was never theirs. These mountains remember, the earth remembers. And I remember. The thing in the darkness moved closer. The temperature dropped. The air turned thick, hard to breathe. For every base they built, I took a price. For every soldier who walked my ground, I took a piece. Some of them I keep, the curious ones, the brave ones. They serve me now, forever. "I won't serve you." My voice was barely a whisper. "I won't. You already do. Your name is on the pillar. You came when I called. You're here, in my mouth, in my throat. The only question now is how long you resist before you join the others." The soldiers were closing in, their hands reaching for me, their empty eyes fixed on mine. And then, I don't know what happened next. I don't remember how I escaped. Don't remember climbing the stairs. Don't remember cutting through the fence or running back to my barracks. The next thing I remember clearly is waking up in the medical building. Sergeant Major Williams standing over my bed, her face carved from stone. "You went into Building 7. It wasn't a question. I... Corporal Reeves found you outside the fence at 0500. You were catatonic. You'd been screaming for 3 hours. The tunnel. There is no tunnel." I stared at her. "What?" "Building 7 is a storage facility. There are no stairs, no basement, no tunnel." She leaned closer. "Whatever you saw, you didn't see it." "But you didn't see it, Torres. That's an order." She transferred me out that afternoon. Medical discharge, psychological evaluation required before return to duty. I haven't been back since, but I still dream about the tunnel. Every night. And every night I walk a little further. Here's the thing. The dream doesn't feel like a dream anymore. It feels like a door. Every night I'm back in that chamber, standing before that pillar, watching my name gleam in the darkness. And every night, the thing in the shadows speaks to me. "You escaped once. You won't escape again. The tunnel goes both ways. You're already here. Part of you never left. Last week, I woke up with dirt under my fingernails, packed tight, the kind of dirt you find deep underground. 3 days ago, I found a rock on my pillow, small, black, warm to the touch, even though my room was cold. Yesterday, I looked in the mirror, and for just a second, my eyes were dark. No whites, no iris, just shadows. I don't think the dreams are dreams anymore. I think I'm going back. Every night, a little more of me returns to that tunnel. A little more of me kneels before that pillar. A little more of me joins the formation of soldiers who serve something older than flags and nations. And lately I've been looking forward to it. The fear is fading. The resistance is crumbling. There's a peace in the darkness, a belonging, a purpose. I've spent my whole life looking for something to believe in, and now I've found it. If you ever get stationed at Camp Ridley, stay away from Building 7. Don't ask questions, don't look at the lights, don't listen to the whispers, and whatever you do, don't go down. But if you've already felt the pull, if you've already dreamed of the tunnel, don't fight it. It's easier if you don't fight it. We'll be waiting for you in the dark, in the deep, in the below. Some doors open inward, some tunnels lead home, and some services you volunteer for in your sleep.